Good morning, it's 8:30. I will call to order the meeting of the Clay County Board of Commissioners. I notice that we do have Commissioner Krabenhoff participating virtually with us today. Our first item on the agenda is an approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion offered from Commissioner Bear, a second from Commissioner Campbell. Further discussion? Discussion? Do we roll call everything? Sarah, please.
Commissioner Krabenhoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Bear,
Yes.
Commissioner Mojo,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Ebbinger.
Aye.
The agenda carries. Our next item on the agenda today is a recognition of Gerald Van Amberg. Come up here, Jerry. Come and join me. Jerry, today we are honoring you for 40 years of dedicated to Clay County and our citizens. You have served our citizens with distinction on the watershed, the Buffalo Red Watershed District, and we wanted to take an opportunity today to thank you so much. There's a saying about water. I think it's whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting, and you sure have stood as a steadfast leader throughout a lot of contentious water issues. I know when I was first elected, there were some challenges with how the diversion was being perceived and how it would affect residents. And your first call to me was to say, Jenny, let's have coffee and let's talk it out. And so much of what you've done at the watershed is just to lend a listening ear, to have discussions so that we can find a way to forge forward. So today we're honoring you and thanking you for all of these years. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you much.
Does he want to go to that mic?
That's all right. I don't think I'll fall, but I
comfortable
want to thank you all. It's been a pleasure, really, in so many ways. As I told some of the others, I've learned a lot with the years, a lot more than I ever gave. And there have been quite a few commissioners that have come and gone over this. Well, they were old like me, I guess. But I want to take the opportunity while I'm here to thank the commission for the help and that they have given to the watershed over the years too, because it's meant a lot. And I know Christine is here. Christine hasn't been there all that long, but I think she's experienced that too by now. But I just know that many times there's been help from the commission to the watershed district. And I think what the watershed does is vitally important to the county in many ways. And you've got some good people, so especially the Clay County people that are looking after it. But again, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I didn't mean to go for 40 years. That was probably too long, but it was hard to give up too because I enjoyed it as well. Those scraps we had sometimes. Yeah. Thanks again. I hadn't anticipated this. You're getting old. Where am I going to hang it?
Anyone else want to say anything? Yep, Commissioner Campbell.
Jerry, thank you for your 40 years. And I personally am one who thinks that you have been on the right side of almost all issues when it comes to the watershed. My first time really dealing with you was back in the days of the Oakport flooding. And we had gone through and we tried to get assistance from the federal government to do some flood protection there, and we were denied based on a cost-benefit ratio. But talking with you and with your help, The watershed really took over in that regard and said that even though this isn't a federal project, it's a project that needs to be done. And probably 12, 15 years later and $30-some million spent by the state of Minnesota, the project was done. And there's an awful lot of people in that Oakport area who are very thankful for your efforts in that regard, and myself included. I've enjoyed working with you. We've talked on many occasions regarding different projects. I shared your frustration on some of the things that went through the Buffalo Red Board, but you've been a strong leader there, and Clay County really owes you a real big thank you. So, thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Kevin. I'll call you Kevin.
Sure, absolutely.
I really appreciated and enjoyed working with you over that time. I remember you were a real leader, though. And getting
This is
that-
about you today. So.
You were certainly a real leader during that time. And I remember all those meetings we had at the Oakport building.
Yep.
I guess it's no longer around even, but perhaps.
It's there, but it's not a town hall anymore.
But that was, yeah, those are interesting times.
Well, I think we're going to try and take a photo with all of the commissioners. I know we'll have to clip art Commissioner Krabbenhoft in. But.
Well, maybe I should have brought my tie.
It's not a funeral, it's a celebration.
I haven't worn one for so long.
And by the way, your work on the MCC JPA has been really important too. I want to thank you for that as well.
How do you want this?
You're in front and center. Bill, you got a lot of years to go.
Not that many. Maybe 108 or something like that. I don't think I'll make it.
Wonderful. Are there any citizens to be heard today? Any individuals wishing to address the county board on any item? Mr. Larson, have we had any requests?
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda would be the approval of the payment of bills and vouchers.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the payment of bills and vouchers.
Motion offered from Commissioner
Second.
Binger, a second from Commissioner Bear. Any further discussion? Discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have to roll call,
Oh,
Madam
I'm
Chair.
sorry. Thank you.
Commissioner Krabbenhoft,
Aye.
Commissioner Bear,
Aye.
Commissioner Mojo,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Ebinger.
Aye.
Thank you. The next item would be the minutes that were presented in the packet from the August 4th, 2026 meeting.
Move approval.
A motion offered from Commissioner Campbell, a second from Commissioner Bear. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Krabbenhoft,
Aye.
Commissioner Bear,
Aye.
Commissioner Mojo,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Ebinger.
Aye.
That item carries. Thank you. The next item is our county engineer. We have a request approval of an MOU with MNDOT for a grad engineer. Good
Yes.
morning.
Good morning. So the first item I have is an MOU with MNDOT. So as part of the grad engineer rotation, MNDOT likes to send their grad engineer to work with a local government for approximately 4 months. During this 4 months, we are able to utilize the employee to help with design and project-related submittals. And then I work with Nathan Gannon, who is the district state aid engineer, to help develop a work plan, and then work closely with the grad engineer. This does not come at any cost to the county other than providing a computer and like my time to help develop a work plan. And being one technician short, I do think this is a really good thing. Comes at zero cost.
Thank you. We did talk about this at our highway tracking committee meeting. We did discuss the benefits to the county, even though there's no cost. We really felt it was during a time in which you could utilize the work. Questions, comments?
Move to approve the MOU?
A motion offered from Commissioner Campbell to approve.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? Discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Krabenhoft,
Aye.
Commissioner Bear,
Aye.
Commissioner Mojo,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Ebinger.
Aye.
Thank you. You also have item 3 today, which is a request approval of final contract voucher for SAP 014-597-003, 014-597-004, and HEI 1915-0083.
Yes, good morning. So the second item is the final contract voucher. There was 3 box culverts that were tied together. 2 of them were funded with bridge bonding, and then the additional one was watershed funded, hence the HEI number. It just made sense to tie them all into one contract. Overall, this project was bid in the fall of 2024. Construction happened in the summer of 2025, and then recently this summer was closed out. Overall, this project was a struggle. Lyle Wilkins was the contractor, and I just think he was not very familiar with state aid and all the things that go with it. So that's the reason for this project taking a lot longer than expected. Overall, it was a good thing for the watershed and the city of Dilworth getting bridge bonding to replace a couple of these structures. So in the end, it is a win. So there is 3 separate projects with 3 separate amounts that I would be looking to get approved. I can read those if you would like.
No, we have the wording in the motion. Any questions, though, from the board?
Madam Chair, I would move final contract voucher number for SAP 014-597-003 in the amount of $241,144.50.
Okay, our first.
Second.
A motion offered from Commissioner Campbell, a second from Commissioner Bear. In regards to the initial bid and the final difference there, where is that additional funding coming from and from what entity?
So a little bit will come from bridge bonding, the rest will be charged to the city and the watershed. There'll be no county share on that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Krabenhoft,
Aye.
Commissioner Bear,
Aye.
Commissioner Mojo,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Ebinger.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Madam Chair, I'd also move final contract voucher for SAP 014-597-004 in the amount of $245,027.50.
Motion offered from Commissioner Campbell, a second from Commissioner Bear. Same question regarding the difference.
A little bit bridge bonding and then the watershed and city of Dilworth.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Krabenhoft,
Aye.
Commissioner Bear,
Aye.
Commissioner Mojo,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Ebinger.
Aye.
That also carries.
Madam Chair, I would move contract voucher for HEI 1915-0083 in the amount of $202,520.50.
Second.
We have a motion offered and a second to approve this, the third request. Any further discussion? Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Krabenhoft,
Aye.
Commissioner Bear,
Aye.
Commissioner Mojo,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Ebinger.
Aye.
And that carries. Okay, you also have item number 4 today, which is a request approval of an MOU with the city of Moorhead.
Yes, so this is an MOU that we've historically had for the MS4 permit, which if you're not familiar, the MS4 is a mandatory small municipal separate storm sewer systems permit. So what this MOU does is basically it covers the county's permit within the city of Moorhead. So anything that happens within the city of Moorhead falls under the city of Moorhead's jurisdiction. So it really eliminates a lot of overlap and a lot of work that we would have to do along with the city of Moorhead. The MOU in the past has saved us a ton of work, and it does really help Moorhead's MS4 as well. Just their regulations kind of take precedent within the city limits.
Okay. Questions? Any questions?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Bear, or Commissioner Ebinger?
I move that we approve the MOU with City of Moorhead.
We have a motion offered
Second.
and a second from Commissioner Bear. We also talked about this at highway tracking. We've been briefed on this as well. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Krabenhoft,
Aye.
Commissioner Bear,
Aye.
Commissioner Mojo,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell, Commissioner Ebinger.
Aye.
Carries. Thank you, Justin.
I did want to share just one thing that's not on the agenda. We did fly the roundabout project last Thursday with the drones. I just
Great.
wanted to share a quick update.
I've had questions over the weekend on that project, so I appreciate that you've brought it forward.
So all of the concrete work has been completed as of roughly 2 weeks ago. They are working, last week they were working on sand on the tie-ins, and then today they're working on gravel. So all of the gravel and sand should be completed this week. It is going really, really well. And they're tracking right on schedule, if not a little bit ahead of schedule. We certainly don't have to play the whole 3-minute video. I just figured it would be
Can you
cool for
put-
you guys to see.
Can you share that out? Can you update that to your
Yep.
Highway Department Facebook page?
When is it scheduled to be complete?
The completion date is September 30th.
So it has moved back a couple days.
Couple days. I was wrong when I told you.
That's okay. The most important date is that it needs to be
October.
done by October 1st.
Yes, definitely.
And you've communicated to the school districts on bus routes as well?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any questions for the board on this?
Looks good.
Are you, the plantings in the middle, are you doing any shrub plantings?
Just grass.
Just grass. Okay, thank you. Any questions? It looks great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I never thought I'd get to a point in my life where I thought roundabouts looked great, but this one will certainly serve a positive purpose.
Definitely. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Justin. Item 5 today is our budget presentation for our solid waste department. We have our solid waste manager, Corey Bang, with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners.
And we do have your budget spreadsheet.
I also have a brief PowerPoint just pointing out the highlights, so,
Perfect.
and I'm technologically challenged, so Sarah's helping me. All right, yes, the budget is, as presented, is in your packets, so I'll just go through a couple of the highlights. We'll start with the revenue side of it. You'll see the per parcel fee is the first item there. It comes in at $1,570,000. That shows a 1.9% decrease to the per parcel. The reason for that is, and this is hard for me to admit because my last name is Bang, but I overshot last year and screwed up that number. So I met with Ms. Johnson, and we corrected that number. And we're looking for a $5 per parcel fee increase to get to that 1.57. So there will be a request for a $5 increase to the per parcel fee from $50 to $55 per household. The next line there, the 650% increase, that is the $75,000. That is recycling. The majority of it's metal that we recycle through the transfer station. We haven't had that in our budget the last few years because I wanted to get a baseline for it. Since we started recycling our own Freon and taking that, removing that and getting credit for that, we've actually increased our revenue there by about $75,000. So we've started adding that to the budget so it gets tracked a little better. So it does show a 650% increase, but we've had that for the last couple of years. And finally, the tipping fees on the bottom, it shows a 3.85% increase to landfill fees. We would also be requesting a $4 per ton tipping fee increase. We just need that to cover some of the expenses, which we'll go over in the future here, so. Any questions? No questions on the revenues, I'll move on.
Any questions on the revenues? Just so the board's aware, we did discuss this at our SWAC committee meeting, so this has been vetted through that committee.
Yeah, and I would bring the official request at a future meeting. Our expenditures, if you're looking at household hazardous waste, there's an increase there from $55,000 to $65,000 in other professional services. We collect roughly 2 1/3 loads of chemical every year. We end up rolling over a little bit every year. This is the year where that third load catches up with us. So we increased it by $10,000 to help cover the cost of that third load of chemical that we have to ship out this year. If you move down, the other professional services at the landfill, we increased that from $250,000 to $300,000. We have some projects with our leachate pumps, and other things like that that we may have to dig into this year, so I increased that a little bit, plus the cost of doing business is just increasing, so that's why the 20% increase there. The other professional services at the RSC is also a 20% increase, but that's only from $25,000 to $30,000. Same deal. The vendors that do some of our work at the transfer station have increased their fees, so we had to increase that to cover it. Engineering and consulting, we increased that by 50%, went from $100,000 to $150,000. We've been running over a little bit on that in previous years, and we have some major reports that are due to the MPCA this year. I do have our landfill technician doing all the preliminary work on that to save us some costs, but Stantec still has to review that, so everything we send into Stantec, and again, their prices have increased, so we have to bump that up just a little bit.
Corey, thank you for putting the budget line item up there. That's really helpful for me.
It's helpful for me too, if I gotta go back.
Thank you. Any questions for Corey before we get too far out? This one's on page 67, or the last one was on page 67.
Continuing on with the expenditures, equipment repair and maintenance, I increased that by 25% at the landfill. I went from 200 to 250. When I started here 10 years ago, or roughly 10 years ago, repair a tire was $40. Now it's $140. Replace a tire was $100. Now it's closer to $500. Everything we do eats up tires, eats up our equipment, because we're pretty tough on stuff going in and out of the landfill. So we just wanted to increase that to make sure we had enough to cover it. So that's where that increase comes from. Same with the RRC. We increased that from 10,000 to 15,000. We have a lot less equipment there, and we're a lot easier on tires there than we are at the landfill. But once again, everything goes up in cost. So. The bottom line there, fuel and lubrication for the vehicles at the landfill, we increased that by 50,000. We've all put gas on lately. I think the last diesel I put on was just about $5 a gallon. So we have 2 trucks that run 10 hours a day every day. Some days we have 3 trucks that run 10 hours. Occasionally, if we get behind, we're running the 4th one. So we buy as much bulk fuel as we can, but the prices are going up. Any questions on those?
Any questions?
Salaries, obviously the salaries have gone up with the COLA and all that. The only reason I pointed out here is we show a decrease in the landfill and an increase at the RRC. That's not a different employee or another employee. That's just, I moved some people around based on staffing and where they go into the budget. So it's a net result of 0 in the movement. It's just, that's why I wanted to point it out. So you didn't see one that shows an 85% increase and think I tried to sneak somebody in there. So we don't look at adding any staff this year. Special requests, as I stated earlier, we have the $5 per parcel fee that I would bring back to you in a future time. We would be going from $50 to $55 per parcel. If you look at neighboring counties, we are still half of what they charge. A lot of them are over $100, $120 per parcel. So, landfill fees, we did talk about that at SWAC as well. The city of Moorhead was aware, and it fit within their budget. It's just needed to cover those additional. And the final item there, we would be looking at a new semi-tractor this year. We're trying to keep them in the rotation. We're gonna get rid of one of them that seems to be our problem child. It's built too low to the ground for what we use it for. We tear bumpers off it about twice a year at a cost of $4,000 plus it breaks down. So we'd like to buy a truck that's more suited for the landfill. We bought that truck during COVID when it was the only truck we could get. I actually drove to South Dakota to pick it up sight unseen because we could not get another truck. So we knew it wasn't ideal when we got it, but we'd like to work it out of the rotation at this point.
When do you, Madam Chair, when do you plan on doing that?
Probably early part of the year. I'll get bids and stuff and figure out which truck we want to go with, take that to SWAC, and then bring it back. But that would come out of our internal service fund. The money's already there, so there would be no increase to the budget.
Any questions?
And the last thing is the organics. As you know, we got our $2 million grant. Our matching fund to that is $400,000. We have done some changes on that. After talking to Commissioner Bear, we've elected to go with a pull-type windrow turner. That allows us to buy a loader tractor, so we would have a second loader at the landfill. We wouldn't be using our payloader constantly all day. That way we could swap it back and forth. So we'd also have the tractor to pull it. We'd have a tractor to blow snow. We've talked about putting safety poles on our semis so that if we get stuck in the mud, we can just hook on with that tractor and pull them rather than having to push or use a chain. It's just safety, plus it would be way more efficient. So that comes at a little bit higher cost. We haven't got the official bids yet, but we're working that out. So we can't take any official bids at this point until we get the contract signed. We're still looking probably right around the first of the year for that. Any questions? Oh, and then the money for that, our portion would come out of the solid waste fund balance. So we would-
Commissioner Bear?
One question on that. You don't plan on hiring anybody else to run the compost?
Not at this point, no. No, we have an operator out there that'll have time to do it. He's been in all the meetings, looked at all the equipment. He's very confident that we can run the stuff, and
If you have any questions on that, just reach out. I can.
we will. We will be sending at least one of our people to some sort of a training. MPCA requires training. We'll send at least one of them, if not both, the landfill tech and the operator, to learn how to do the composting. We'd like to have it up and running as soon as possible next year so we can start with some small loads before school starts, so we have an idea of what's going on. And that is
Any
all the
questions?
highlights, unless there's questions.
Commissioner Krabbenhoft, I can't see you, so if you have any questions, just chime in.
Yeah, no questions.
Thank you. Any further questions? Commissioner Campbell?
Back to the recycling.
Recycling and composting.
Yeah, our recycling budget for expenditures is almost $691,000, right?
Yep.
And then that's offset by the revenues that we get, or the score funding we get for 230. And then the 75,000 was what again? You just said that.
That's the metal we recycle at the trap.
Okay, okay. So the difference of those is the net cost of recycling, right?
Yes.
And then when we determine how much goes to each locality, is that the 6621?
Line 6621 you're talking?
Yeah.
No, that's it comes out of that line, correct. That's the money we put in to cover that.
And what else comes out of that?
Well, that would, our own recycling costs, so everybody, we have to pay to Minn-Kota to pick our stuff up or that kind of stuff. Otherwise, it all goes out in that, so.
So the portion that goes to our communities is how much of the
430-some thousand.
Okay, yeah. And then, so the rest then of that 600 is basically, we're paying ourselves.
It's for our own recycling costs.
Right.
For our employee, for our recycling bins, that kind of thing, correct.
Right, okay. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have more to come on that later, but,
Yeah, and we're working on a formula for that, or we've worked on it.
Yep.
We will be presenting that at a later time as well.
yeah, and I'm just wondering at what point in time is the portion that we're keeping for ourselves enough?
Right. Yep. And that's, the
We'll have
formula we
that-
worked out is based on that, basically a third goes to us to cover our costs.
We'll have those conversations a little bit later, I think, but, and then also, I think before, ultimately, and I certainly understand the 4% for the tipping fee increase. I think that's
We haven't raised our tipping fee in 2 years.
Right.
Payment
The,
for
the,
parcel
the $5 one, I'm gonna just ask for a little bit more information on that. I wanna know, more on where, as a, enterprise fund, it seems to me when I saw what was provided to us, solid waste had a significant gain in fund balance from 2026 to 2020, or 2025 to 2024. And I just want to, I know some of that is asset related, and it's not necessarily dollars, but I think before I feel comfortable on doing an extra $5, I would like to just, and we can sit down and talk, and we'll have time to do that.
And the, part of the fund balance we have, I talked to Ms. Johnson, and there's $7.8 million in that fund balance, but that goes, we save that to do future cell projects and that kind of thing. So we don't
Right.
have to bond for it.
Yeah, there's part of it that's a closure, post-closure, and then there's
Yep.
plans, yeah. But the beauty of this one is really nothing that you have here is tied to our levy. So we actually have until, well, if we're gonna, the tipping fee increase, need to let everybody know soon on that one. And so I think that one probably by the time we set our preliminary levy, we can notify everybody what those rates are. But the part about the $5, this board doesn't have to make that decision till December.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Any additional questions or comments?
Just one question, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Bear?
What does it cost to open up a cell at the landfill?
Last quote I got was roughly $3 million an acre,
An acre?
and an acre isn't very big.
No.
So, Cory, if I can just tack on to, so back when we were first planning these cell expansions, a lot of them were basically expanding outward.
Correct.
Now, under our new permit guidelines, we're allowed to go up.
Yep.
Is it as expensive to go up as it is to go out?
You still have to have the liner on the outside layer, and they have to overlap each other. So yeah, anytime you add a cell, it's gonna be somewhere between that $2.5 to $3 million per acre.
Okay.
And we aren't looking at adding one for 15 years. If composting takes off, it could be 30.
Right, yeah.
But at that point, is it gonna be $10 million? We don't know what the costs are gonna be. So we like to have that fund balance just to, so we don't have to start bonding for something like that and or a major tipping fee increase or something.
Any other questions? Really good stuff here, thank you, we appreciate it. We are a little ahead of schedule, so I'd like to knock off some committee reports if possible. Commissioner Ebinger, can I?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tuesday, the 11th, I had attended the EDA quarterly discussion with the rest of the board. I had Matt Jacobson gave us a really good Clay County project, solar project updates. Matt Lyseth covered some casino update information, the information that was at hand. Then we had the check-ins from the various cities that responded, and they gave us a update on what's going on in the municipalities. The next day, and I'm sorry, on the 12th, Wednesday the 12th, I had a couple of calls with the sheriff and with Emilio Lamba of AMC discussing the issues we had with the $1.3 million medical bill that the jail had been confronted with. That's, I think, resolved itself the next day. I have talked to our commissioner and county attorney, along with Emilio, in looking at this statute that seems to indicate that if the state has negotiated a cost, that's the cost that's passed on to the county on some of these medical procedures. which really pulled the 1.3 million that we were facing, made it more manageable. But how applicable that is to bills that we paid in the past and to ongoing obligations we may face in the future, I think we need to examine that and see if additional legislation is in order. On Thursday, the 13th, I attended the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon meeting. Just had a couple of conversations with MSU and Veteran Success Team members about what the Homeless Coalition is doing, and I'm going to try to hook them up with the people, the administrators of the Homeless Coalition. There is some funding that's come in to address veterans' homelessness, and I think there may be a nice connection there. We also discussed the loss of VA benefits when individuals are incarcerated. Kirk Cannon was familiar with the federal law that controls that. And then on Friday, the 14th, attended a virtual meeting where we discussed the Creighton presentation. Jessica Mickelson, Public Health, everybody in the Partnership for Public Health, members of it attended as well. Jason McCoy gave us a presentation on it. It's a very interesting issue. I think, Steve, when do they have us scheduled for them to come and brief the whole commission?
September 1st.
September 1st. Looking at what's going on in North Dakota right now, looking at some of the federal legislation that has yet to do anything, and when you're talking about getting federal legislation through right now, it may be not a question of months, but years. But this does seem to present a public health issue, at least as far as the substances, this 7-OH synthetic. The DEA is looking at that right now on the federal end of it. North Dakota is looking at 2 bills right now that they've accepted for the special session, or having, one of which only addresses 7-OH, the other addresses all of the Creighton substances that are involved. I think Jessica has done a really good job. She told us during the meeting that Commissioner Mojo had brought it to her attention that these were issues, and this wasn't on her screen either. I didn't know about this until 2 months ago. So I appreciate that this has been brought up as something we can look at, because I do believe it's a public health issue, at the very least, on the 7-OH synthetics. And if we can get the public informed on this, I'm sure some of the merchants that are selling the synthetic substances are going to be surprised at the threat this presents, and there may even be a voluntary withdrawal of it. If not, we need to make the public aware of the risks of addiction and overdose that these substances present, particularly if kids are buying them. And it looks like some of these marketing approaches are directed at youth, as we've seen with other substances. So it's an interesting and ongoing issue. I look forward to the presentation we're going to have December 1st. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Ebinger. Commissioner Kravinoff?
Yes, I only had meetings on Thursday, the 13th, and I don't have my notes with me, but just if there's something, I'll present more next week. But had the monthly SWCD meeting, and Commissioner Bear was at that. And then that afternoon, Commissioner Bear and I and 2 others from the city of Moorhead were part of the election canvassing group, certifying the votes that were taken in at each of the voting sites. So, Commissioner Bear, if you have more, chime in, please. That's all. That's what I had.
Appreciate that, Commissioner Kravinoff. Commissioner Campbell?
Thank you. On Tuesday, the 11th, we attended the EDC-EDA quarterly meeting, which has been discussed already. I just want to thank those that were in attendance for their input. Discussion, the conversations regarding the solar panels that Matt presented to us was very interesting. Then on the 13th, I attended the Diversion Authority Planning Committee meeting virtually, and the topics there were actually, I don't have my notes from that one because I was attended virtually, but we spent some time talking about the retreat coming up in September, the full board retreat in September. And then we also had some conversations regarding the, towards the end of October, there's going to be a honors and awards and recognition banquet that's going to be put on for probably everybody who has had some sort of, everybody who's had any type of work involved with this project going all the way back. I think they have a hall reserved that can hold up to 600 people. And I believe they've already got 250 or so reservations already in. I've asked Steve to check with the planners on that to see for those of us who may want to attend from Clay County how that seating arrangement can be. I think it's going to be up to each of us to purchase our own tickets for it, but at the same point in time, I think it would be it'd be nice if we're all able to be at a table together during that event. So Steve will check on that. I believe most of you have probably already received an invitation. If you haven't, let me know, and I'll make sure that you have the opportunity to do that or to enroll in that. And then that is one where it's I believe it's going to be open to spouses and significant others and that type of thing as well to go to that. So anyway, the date is I think it's a Thursday night, and I'll give more.
October 22nd.
October 22nd? Yeah, okay. So, and those were the main things discussed there. And then I also attended the Lakes Country Service Cooperative meeting, and the thing of interest there and again, that's one that I am an elected board member to, but I represent counties on that. And the item of interest, I think, for our community is that Lakes Country Service is working together with Moorhead Public Schools, and the intention is to have when they open up the new in the new building that they're doing that's out there on 34th Street, that we are going to have a site that's going to be capable of having roughly 15 kids in there in specialized programming. And those kids right now are having to be bused on a daily basis to either Fergus Falls or Alexandria. So to have them back home is a real plus. And they're working on the remodeling of that facility right now, I believe, or starting shortly. And it's according to our executive director, Jeremy Kovash, we're looking at that portion of that facility being handed over to us on January 1st of next year. And part of that, they're dealing with because it has to have a separate entrance from the rest of the facility, because of the nature of the clientele there, and then there has to be a different, they have to deal a little bit with the parking lot too, that I think it has to do with bringing these kids by bus right to the door or something. But anyway, I think that's really good news for those families who have kids that are currently having to be sent all the way to Fergus Falls every day to be able to stay right in Moorhead, I think it'll be a real plus. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Campbell. Commissioner Bear?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was also at the EDA EDC meeting last Tuesday afternoon. I won't go into that. I think you guys did a very good job reporting on that. And then on Wednesday, August 12th, I was at the Wild Rice Watershed District meeting where they heard 20 permits, 17 which were passed and 3 were tabled. One of them that was passed was in Goose Prairie Township for a water and sediment control basin in section 35 over in Goose Prairie Township. They also approved their budget levy. They had an increase in their administrative budget of $12,000, so it will end up at $288,000 for the administrative budget. And then they also adopted the Red River Board levy. Then on Thursday, I was at the Clay County SWCD Board meeting where they approved 7 hay plantings, cost shares, and 5 cover crop cost shares. Also, they also approved some control sediment cost shares, which how many? 1, 2, 3. 3 of those, and then 1 steam bank stabilization in Buffalo River watershed. And we had some discussion on their tree storage, so they're looking for a place to store trees. We had some discussion on that. They're looking for the county's input on that. I'll talk about that at the building committee tomorrow.
Is that, Commissioner Bear, trees that they're pulling out of the river, or?
No, that would be, so they're trees that they plant every spring.
Got it.
A place
Okay.
to store those, so they need a place to store them for about 3 months out of the year. A cooler. And then later that afternoon, I was also at canvassing with Commissioner Krabanoff. Commissioner Krabanoff was also at the SWCD board meeting. And then in the afternoon, we went to canvassing and certified the primary election. On Friday, the 14th, I was also sat in on the Kratom presentation from Public Health, which I thought was a very good presentation. And yeah, they'll be bringing that. Well, actually, on September 1st, our plan is to have our board, have them present to our board, and then virtually present that same presentation at the same time to Becker County's board. So hopefully we work that out so it can be all done at once, just so everybody's informed at the same time. And that is my committee reports, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Bear. Last week, I also attended the EDA EDC meeting with all of you, a dialogue with Dilworth, Hawley, Barnesville, and Moorhead representatives. Great updates on items of mutual interest and individual project highlights. The solar discussion is very valuable, particularly for all of us as we just work through how those large-scale land use components affect all of us. That presentation will also be happening at the Planning Commission this evening, which will be helpful. Later in the week, I attended a roundtable invitation from Senator Kupek, Senate Majority Leader. Senator Aaron Murphy was in town. We had a dialogue at the Trinity preschool daycare space. We had in-home providers and center providers part of a dialogue to discuss challenges in the rules and the implementation of the July 2027 pieces. I'm hopeful that there will be additional roundtable opportunities for other providers. I really feel like it's beneficial to hear some of their perspectives, and I know with talking with social services, there are challenges with implementation and rules components, and so having the county at the table is very important. I also attended a community roundtable in the city of Barnesville in regards to community space, programming space, potential youth space. It was an opportunity for residents to provide input on what their vision for community shared space could look like in the future. I attended the AMC Executive Committee meeting last week. We did have a lot on the agenda as we move towards fall policy and tweaking some of the rules for folks to provide suggestions for new amendment platforms, making sure that it's not just, it's more of a broad scope of people bringing forward those presentations and not just one county, say, having 50 different amendments. I was asked to participate in a interview discussion with Steve Hallstrom yesterday, a discussion about the reduction of 31% in our public health levy request. Understanding that is a coordination between social services, and so it's not all 100% of savings, but I do appreciate the opportunity for two departments to be working together to find where the reimbursement is substantially more and shifting services over to that capacity. But I just underscore how amazing our staff is in working how to find efficiencies and savings where we can without sacrificing this service to our community. I also attended yesterday an insider access with the chamber, a roundtable with Congresswoman Fedorchak on the working family tax credit components, updates on the ag and SNAP bill that is so important for a lot of us. Really appreciate the opportunity to be part of that dialogue. And that concludes my reports. We are now scheduled for a 5-minute break. We will come back at 9:26. We are back. Our next item on the agenda is a budget presentation from Social Services. We have our Social Services Director with us, Quinn. Good morning.
Morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Yes, I am here to present the 2027 budget and 2025 year-end overview, kind of show where we ended for 25 before jumping into 2027.
And the budget is a line item in your presentation if anyone's looking for it.
Yep. So I do have a couple, I'm gonna say attachments in your packets for you. I will kind of reference those as we go in terms of where they fit into the budget presentation. We'll have to say it'll be the opposite of Corey's this morning. It's going to be a lot longer than Corey's was. At any point in time, stop me if you have any questions. I do try to be pretty comprehensive, but again, if you have any questions, just let me know.
Thank you, Quinn.
Okay, so looking at 2025, that's a high-level picture of where we ended. We budgeted $29.46 million in revenue, actually received about $29.86 million, so slightly above projection for our 25 revenues. We budgeted $29.81 million in expenditures, including a planned $350,000 use of our fund balance. Actual expenditures came in at $31.47 million, which meant expenditures exceeded our revenue by about $1.61 million. So after accounting for that $350,000 of fund balance, the remaining difference was $1,256,097. That's what I'm going to speak to for the 2025 overview. Just to note, end of calendar year 2025, social services fund balance was sitting at $10,202,854.
Yes, Commissioner Campbell?
Just briefly, so that 1.256 million, is that mostly out-of-home placement?
The majority of it's out-of-home placement. I will break down exactly what that is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I'm
Yep.
getting ahead here.
You bet. Great question. I thought you were going to ask me that. So I do have our revenue figures broken out in your packet as well. Looks like this document. That is a line-by-line explanation of the 4 different revenue sources that I'm going to talk about. So this slide is intended to give just that high-level picture of where our revenue comes from. The largest part, the largest green pie there, that's our tax levy and credits. We took in $29.8 million in revenue. 15.3 million of that, or 51%, was the tax levy and credits. That includes county property tax levy, along with the related tax credits, as well as some aids and reimbursements. Came in very close to budget. We budgeted $15.43 million, and the actuals was $15.33 million. Difference of about $98,000, or less than 1%. The next largest source is our federal funding at $7.17 million, or 24% of our overall revenue. This includes federal administrative reimbursement, MA funding, child support incentives, child welfare funding, child care funding, targeted case management, and a few other federal grants. Our federal revenue came in approximately $651,000 over budget. I do have an important qualification, though. When we talk about both the federal and state portions of the pie, it's timing. The state and federal reimbursements consistently have a timing issue for social services. We don't control when those are actually released to us. What we can control is tracking when the underlying activity occurred and for which year that revenue actually relates to. It's isolated to the state and federal pieces of this, not the tax levy or the miscellaneous revenue. So an example, during the calendar year 2025, we received just over $238,000 in state and federal revenue that was attributable to work completed in fourth quarter of 2024. But because it was received after the accrual period, it's in our 2025 accounts. At the same time, we've received $760,000 in 2026 that should be attributable to work done in fourth quarter of 2025.
Yes, Commissioner Campbell?
So would that be treated as, so you said that we didn't, we got some money in 2025 that was for fourth quarter 2024.
Yeah.
So we knew that money was coming in and at the end of 2024.
We anticipated it.
We
Yeah.
anticipated it, so would that have been treated as a receivable? These questions might be for Lori, but.
Yeah, the details of how that gets timed is probably a Lori question. We track it on an individual revenue line by line. So we're taking away the timing issue and just looking at what is that revenue based on the actual work that's being done.
But the reason I asked that, Quinn, is because, we usually don't even see for example, for 2025, we probably didn't even see final 2025 numbers until probably a month ago or 2 months ago.
Yep.
And that's because of all the year-end adjustments that need to be made. And so I'm curious during that process, if Lori puts it into its proper year or if it's in the year received.
I don't know for sure, but my understanding is that during the accrual period, which I believe is end of February, beginning of March, we can still make those adjustments, that if we receipt in revenue in, let's say, 26, if it's within that accrual period, we can still go back, I'm going to say, apply it to 2025. But if we receive it after the accrual period, I don't believe we have the ability to make it go backwards, essentially.
Because that could really skew the numbers, especially if you have a large fourth quarter receivable and then you're not. And then it's.
Yep. That's why we track each
Kind of get
individual
into the
line.
weeds here, but more questions maybe for Lori, but.
Thank you for that. So, again, trying to remove the $238,000 for 24 and the $760,000 that should be in 2025, but it's in 2026, there is an addition of $521,000 worth of revenue that isn't apparent if you just look at the lines. Again, I wanted to point that out because it is important for how we manage and project that revenue. We track the timing differently. For budgeting purposes, again, we look at those individual revenue lines and the year in which the activity actually occurred, so it gives us a more accurate basis to project revenue for the future. So state and county program aid accounted for $5.95 million, or 20% of our total revenue. This includes a broad range of state grants, program-specific funding tied to child protection, waiver case management, adult protection, mental health, child care, housing, and other services. We budgeted around $6.56 million in this category, so state revenue appeared to finish about $614,000 below budget, but again, this is one of the categories where reimbursement timing has to be considered. The remaining revenue is our miscellaneous revenue. Approximately $1.4 million, or 5% of our overall revenue, came from this. It's recoveries, collections, managed care payments, fees, estate settlements, and grants that we receive through other organizations, and then any other receipts that don't fall neatly into the other three categories. We budgeted $942,000 in miscellaneous revenue, but received $1.4 million. So happy to report $462,000 above what we were projecting in that revenue. There are no timings with the miscellaneous revenue or the tax levying credits revenue.
Any questions so far? I mean, there's questions, but any questions to bring up right now?
So now I will break down the expenditures. What I did was break them down into administrative expenditures and program expenditures. So this slide looks just at the administrative side for financial services, child support, and social services. Our budget is kind of broken out into those three larger program areas. Basically, this slide represents what it costs for us to operate the department and deliver the work. Things in these lines would be staff costs, health insurance, office supplies, phone and language line, postage, travel, technology, the other things that we need to actually administer the programs. So looking at our yellow columns, that's financial services. They came in about $99,564 over budget. The primary drivers were slightly higher health insurance costs and increased telephone and interpreter costs through language line. The reason for that was a federal review of our SNAP program. We needed to create a program that callers be offered immediate language line access. Essentially now when you dial the 5200 number, you'll get press 1 for English or press 2 for any other language, and they're automatically connected to a translator. In order to be compliant with SNAP, we had to implement that, and we saw roughly a doubling of our telephone-related costs in that 600 program area. We have adjusted accordingly. We knew that was coming in 2026, so it's already been adjusted in 26 and in 2027 as well. Child support came in about $70,939 under budget. Primary reasons, we had some small savings in salaries and health insurance due to attrition. We also saw some savings in our county attorney billable services because most of those costs were actually concentrated in the green social services area instead of child support. They did have about $6,600 in combined savings for office supplies as well as small and large office equipment. And then social services came in slightly under budget as well, $2.474 million, compared with our $2.499 million that we budgeted. Those savings were kind of spread all across our administrative lines rather than one big ticket item. We did see a smaller office supply cost, slightly lower travel and expenses costs, and about $1,000 in postage that we saved. Overall, the administrative side, or the administrative lines, was pretty close to plan, with the larger financial pressures showing up more clearly in our program-specific expenditures on the next slide.
I just maybe want a little bit of a soapbox piece, but when we talk about administrative expenditures, not all of these programs are Clay County specific programs. A lot of these programs are legislatively delegated programs that counties are administrating, correct?
That's correct. So that's a perfect segue. The yellow bars, if you will, are financial services. That represents all costs associated with having our eligibility workers be a part of our staff. And they are administering SNAP and MA from the federal government. The state delegates that to counties. So the yellow lines is almost exclusively what that is.
Okay, thank you.
So program expenditures, what I'm going to do is break down basically everything except out-of-home placements because that deserves the next slide all on its own. So these are, I'm going to say, every dollar that doesn't account for out-of-home placements when it comes to expenditures over what we budgeted. County burials is first, came in about $10,600 over budget. We were fortunate that our estate recaptures helped offset a portion of those, bringing the net levy impact down to $153,000. But even with that offsetting revenue, which we can't always reliably count on, county burial costs have continued to trend upward year over year. You'll see me address this in 2027 section today. The next area is our nursing home care for individuals under age 65 who remain in a nursing facility more than 90 days. That came in about $37,000 over budget. County is responsible for a portion of those costs. This also continues to be a recurring budget pressure, so I will break it down in greater detail in the 2027 part of the presentation. Daycare for kiddos in foster care came in about $30,900 over budget. I did highlight this earlier this year during an out-of-home placement committee discussion. Many of our foster parents are working families with full-time jobs in addition to providing foster care, and daycare is a huge factor in those placements being successful and sustainable. We see fewer situations where foster parents can just stay home and provide 24/7 care instead of having full-time jobs, so the need to supplement daycare costs has increased. The state reimbursement available for daycare kiddos is well below what the actual cost of care is, leaving either the county to absorb that difference or push the cost onto the foster parents. So while this does create an expenditure pressure, it is a very important support that helps us maintain safe and stable foster care placements and relative placements within our community. Our sex offender and DNMC costs which represent 4 of our indigent lines related to individuals who are civilly committed or determined to be sexually dangerous, came in about $37,500 over budget. These costs are particularly difficult to predict because they depend on the number of individuals the state's Attorney General Office decides to commit and the duration and cost of their care. The county is responsible for a portion of those costs as well, even though we have very little ability to control those decisions in those cases. I'll break this down in 2027's budget as well as I am adjusting.
Can I speak to the volatility maybe of budgeting for that piece? How often do you see requests to, my understanding is we are paying for the folks in that line item that reside within Clay County. How often do you see requests to transfer in and or out of the county? And to that maybe piece, do we see more folks here because of the proximity to the healthcare system, North Dakota, the hospitals on the Fargo side?
Sure. I'm not sure I can speak to the details of transferring in. Once a resident is deemed Clay County's financial responsibility, that designation stays with them until they would be discharged. In terms of new commitments, I might have to yield to Mr. Melton.
So it's less of maybe, it's not as fluid because of the commitment with the county court.
Yeah, I know, so these costs represent 4 lines in our budget, and one of those lines only represents 11 people. But those people have been, we have this reoccurring cost because they've been in this program for 15, 20 years.
Okay.
There is stability in the fact that once they're in it, they stay in it. They're deemed sexually dangerous, or they have to, say, successfully complete their commitment and be off of commitment in order for us to not sustain those costs any further. The volatility comes from, we don't know if a new person will meet that criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Children's mental health respite is the last one on this slide, came in $38,800 over budget. We use a combination of funding sources to support CMH respite, including 2 children's mental health grants as well as some levy dollars. Respite is an important part of our continuum of care for children's mental health. While we did overspend in this area, I do view respite as an important upstream and preventative service. Giving children and families a temporary break in an alternative setting can really help stabilize the situation before it escalates into a more expensive Rule 5 or residential mental health placement. So there is that immediate cost for respite, but I really do look at it as what does it reduce or eliminate or prevent in terms of the significantly higher costs. These are all meaningful program pressures, but relatively small when we look at the next one, which is our out-of-home placements. So in your packets, you will see this sheet as well. This is our out-of-home placement sheet. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. I have essentially taken the bare bones from this sheet and put it on the slide. I will reference this one again in 2027. So this graph represents about 100 separate budget lines in our budget in a few different program areas, all related to out-of-home placement. I know the board is aware, but for any members of the public, rather than walk through every single one of those individual lines, we group them together to show the overall picture in a more clear and digestible way. Of the roughly $1.256 million in overall expenditures for 2025, $1.174 million was out-of-home placements. So this really is by far the main reason for our overage in 2025. One major component, again, continues to be our Rule 5 placements, which are those mental health residential placements that don't meet the criteria for a PRTF, where MA would essentially pick up the tab. In 2025, those placements cost Clay County $817,635. This is likely not a surprise given all of your advocacy efforts around our desire to bring a PRTF to Clay County, but these placements continue to be a significant cost driver, particularly when appropriate MA-covered treatment options are just not available. We also spent $800,870 on the stabilization program. Those are often placements at West Central Regional Juvenile Center used to stabilize a child when their health and safety is in jeopardy, or they're having a high acuity mental health episode and we don't have that bed capacity in other facilities across the state. This program continues to serve as a necessary stopgap for the lack of residential treatment beds in the state. So taken together, those Rule 5s and stabilization costs represent a really large portion of our out-of-home placement expenditures.
Commissioner Campbell?
Those kids that you referred to in the West Central Regional facility, so they are in the secure portion of the facility?
Non-secure.
So that is 100% Clay County then?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
We also saw an increase in correctional placements, which accounted for $755,000. These are generally tied to juvenile probation cases, often court-ordered or recommended because of public safety concerns. However, we have them in our social services budget and reflect in our placement costs. We did see a significant increase in our CLIPS expenditures in 2025, and while that was an increased cost, I actually view that utilization as a positive indicator that our local CLIPS program is being used and that youth are being served closer to home when it's appropriate and they can gain those independent skills as they transition to adulthood. Unfortunately, this out-of-home placement pressure has continued so far into 2026, and when we get to this part in 2027's budget, you'll see that I'm making adjustments to better reflect those costs and looking beyond 2027 into 2028 and 2029 already to see what sort of structural changes we might need. Any questions about 2025?
I don't know if I necessarily have a question, but I just want to jump to the out-of-home placement piece. Commissioner Gross and I were part of that working group that we had at the county for a long time to discuss this. This has been a continual issue in regards to how do we budget this. Rhonda talked to us for years about it, and now Commissioner Bear and I have been part of those dialogues. And when you talk about the volatility in budgeting for what that means, we've seen some pretty substantial swings in these items, and obviously we're committed to addressing this, however, which is why we're doing the legislative work that you talked about. I saw another news article, I think it was in the Tribune yesterday, that's talking about the state ending the utilizations of hotels for some of these placements. And as we see continual instances of placement potentials going away, even if we were to build our facility fully funded today, we're still hundreds of beds short. And so this is a bigger issue than just a Clay County piece, but I think the community, we get a lot of pressure about, facilitating unfunded mandates, and there are a lot, but these are Clay County children. These are not kiddos that are relocating. These are Clay County kids. And so, we just need to continue to talk about how the reimbursement pieces don't make sense, which is why, you're seeing shortage of bed placements. But thanks for updating us on this number. It's huge. It's a huge number, but it's a challenging one to kind of completely understand.
Yeah. And I have to say, we've been fortunate to not be in situations where we've had to hotel kids. I know a lot of counties have done that. Our partners across the river have to do that regularly just because lack of options. With this board's support, the expansion of the juvenile center, James and his crew, they're always willing to step up and help so that kiddos don't have to stay in a hotel. I mean, that's not a placement that's designed for a kiddo that's in foster care that's done nothing wrong. So we appreciate everyone's support in that.
Thank you.
2027, I'm going to jump right into it. Our levy request for 2027 is $18.36 million, or $18,360,154. That's an increase of $2.47 million, or 15.54% over 2026. I recognize that is a substantial increase. The board is already familiar with the majority of the primary cost drivers, as I've brought many of these issues forward already this year. Purpose of the next several slides is to kind of break every one of those down, clearly identify what's driving the increase, and distinguish which costs are externally imposed and mandated. I will show where we've used available offsets to reduce the impact as well as we can without harming service delivery as well. Again, just a reminder, today the information is our best guess as to what will be necessary to maintain our required services and account for the funding and cost changes that we know are coming in 2027. So in your packets, you'll also receive kind of the budget review sheet. This is one I would recommend kind of following along with. I will break down kind of each one of these lines with a slide. So this page is an overview of the items most impacting that increase. It shows that the increase is spread across a number of different areas, isn't one single kind of smoking gun that, or operational decision that accounts for the change. About half of the increased expenditures, approximately 1.21 million, are tied directly to federal or state actions that are being imposed on counties across Minnesota. That would be the yellow bars that are highlighted on this slide. Again, these are not decisions that are made by this board or social services. There are changes in funding structures, cost shifts, or new county responsibilities that we're being mandated to absorb. Some of those largest pressures are tied to those state and federal changes, including the SNAP administrative loss, which is $402,533, the SNAP error rate exposure, which is $383,207, and the new long-term service and supports cost share, which is $505,000.
Yes, Commissioner Bear.
That SNAP error rate is just for Q4 of next year.
That is correct. That is just Q4, October to December of 2027. If that were annualized, it'd be closer to $1.35 million. One area I'm continuing to monitor within the LTSS world is our Min Choices reassessments. These are annual assessments that are required for individuals receiving waivered services and are critical to maintaining that eligibility, maintaining their services and their provider placements. Historically, reassessor caseloads have been around 13 per reassessor. We're now seeing an average of 18, and with the new CFSS requirements, it's sometimes higher than 18. I did not include an additional reassessor as a new request. I'm doing my best to keep our expenditures as low as possible, but I do want the board to be aware that I am monitoring whether that staffing is sustainable. Again, not asking you for the position today, but I also don't want this to be the first time that you hear about it if I have some data that I need to present to you later on. We also continue to see significant pressure in an area where the county has limited ability to control the underlying cost, including out-of-home placements, commitment hold orders, and our detox and withdrawal management. There are more traditional operating costs, operating increases reflected here, including salaries, COLAs, steps, health insurance, our provider contracts, paid family medical leave, and other administrative costs. I will highlight kind of those compensation costs right here. I didn't create a separate slide for that one. The net 2027 impact of salary adjustments, COLAs, steps, and health insurance is approximately $263,290. That figure accounts for the staffing changes between budget years, so our public health, social services, SNBC Min Choices switch, as well as the reduction of the one licensor position into the two staggered eligibility workers. Because that staffing structure changed, simply comparing FTEs to FTEs didn't work, so that $263,290 isolates just those compensation-related increases and accounting for those staff changes.
And that's the net, so you're reflecting the increased revenue potential?
Yep. I've identified approximately $311,000 in offsets, either through increased revenues or decreased expenditures. Those offsets are built into the request, and everything we could do to help reduce the overall levy impact as much as possible. To me, the key takeaway from this slide is that that $2.47 million increase is a cumulative effect of multiple pressures, many of them externally driven or outside of our county control, combined with those out-of-home placement expenses and normal operating increases. So I'll now move through them kind of individually.
I just really want to briefly, we talk a little bit about the county program aid helping the money from the state that helps to offset some of these mandates, but our program aid actually decreased.
It went down.
So we're seeing on this, the 1.2 additional federal and state imposed pieces. If you add an additional 1.1 million on top of the SNAP, which would be the entire year, as we see those gaps growing further and further apart, we need to really educate legislators, because I'm hearing them say, well, we increase county program aid. No. Yes, Commissioner Campbell.
Ma'am, thank you. Quinn, this recap page that you have here is very helpful. It's discouraging, but it's helpful for us to at least see where it's going. When you look at items 5 through 13, those are sustainable numbers. Those are things that our citizens know that we have to pay our employees and that type of thing. 1 through 4 is just not sustainable. I mean, we've got to figure out some solutions to this. From a property tax standpoint, to pay for that, it's just we're gonna be losing people. We're gonna be losing people to other states if this continues. And, so it's frustrating, but we gotta come up with some answers to 1 through 4.
Appreciate that. There, speaking with Commissioner Bear during the break, there was a point in time where I thought number 7 would be the biggest uphill battle that I'd ever have to face as a director back in
Right,
2024.
right.
So
Yeah,
your
it's
take was
minute.
the same.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, that's exactly what I'd like to speak to first, would be that number 7, which is our healthcare unwinding. As the board may remember, during COVID, the state suspended normal medical assistance renewal requirements. Individuals who otherwise may have lost eligibility remained on MA through the pandemic. Once the public health emergency ended, counties were required to return to normal eligibility renewals and work through a significant backlog of cases. That created a really substantial amount for our eligibility workers. In July of 2023, Clay County received $461,139 in one-time healthcare unwinding funds from the state to help counties manage that workload. Importantly, those funds did not have an expiration date on when they had to be spent, which gave us some flexibility on how we use them. Back then, social services made the decision to support hiring 3 eligibility workers and 1 case aide in our financial services team. We also claimed 50% FFP for those positions on the eligible salary costs, which really allowed us to stretch those one-time dollars at least, I'd say, 2 times longer than what we would have anticipated. That strategy worked really well. We were able to complete the unwinding work, but just as importantly, we were able to maintain those staff and absorb the significant caseload growth that has occurred since 2023 at the same time. As you've heard in prior financial services updates throughout the years, the number of individuals receiving MA and our other financial assistance program has continued to grow, and the rules keep changing and getting more complex. As the slide shows, Clay County already carries the highest caseloads within our most comparable counties for our eligibility staff. So in practical terms, these healthcare unwinding funds really allowed us to delay additional staffing requests for several years. Had we not received that unwinding money, I believe we likely would have been coming back to this board in prior budget cycles requesting additional eligibility staff as those caseloads increased, likely several times over the past 3 years when you realize we hired 4 staff at one time. Unfortunately, we're now at the end of that funding. In 2026, this year, we're using $162,000 of that unwinding dollars. In 2027, what is left is $16,500. So this is creating a $145,526 levy impact for 2027. I did review whether we could simply eliminate those positions when the funding ended, but given our current caseloads, the ongoing work in financial services, and the additional changes coming from the Big Beautiful Bill, I don't believe that that's operationally possible without suffering some pretty substantial negative impacts on our state and federal requirements. The state anticipated that when the folks that were on MA during COVID, once they got off, that the caseloads would decrease. We saw a small reduction, but not even remotely close to what they were expecting. So caseloads grew a lot in the last 3 years. So again, while this appears on the 2027 budget as an increase, I like to view it more accurately as the expiration of a one-time funding source that really allowed us to defer ongoing staffing costs for several years. Moving on to our provider contracts. This is just, it's not a comprehensive list of all of our contracts, just 5 of the larger ones. Common theme throughout Minnesota statutes is that the county board must ensure certain services are available. We do not necessarily have to directly employ county staff to provide every one of these services. In many cases, contracting with qualified community providers is the most practical and cost-effective way for us to meet that responsibility. So TransM provides supported employment services connected to the county's responsibilities under the Adult Mental Health Act, including statute 245.465, which requires the county board to develop and coordinate a system of locally available adult mental health services. Solera, formerly Rape and Abuse Crisis Center, provides services that support our responsibilities involving vulnerable children, families, and individuals impacted by abuse under Chapter 256M and 260C. Lakeland Mental Health is another important example. Under statute 245.465 and .466, the county board is responsible for developing and coordinating the local adult mental health service system. Section 245.466 specifically allows counties to meet our responsibilities either directly through our own staff or through county contracts with other agencies or local community mental health centers. That's the role that Lakeland plays for us as a part of our local mental health system via this contract. LSS provides our guardianship-related services that supports our responsibilities involving vulnerable adults, including protections established under Statute 626.557. That statute establishes the state's policy of protecting our vulnerable adults from maltreatment and ensuring appropriate services and safe living environments are available. And the YWCA similarly supports services involving vulnerable adults, but also children and families, including our responsibilities under 256M and other child protection statutes. Really, I've looked at these contracts and our choices, whether we provide those services directly ourselves or whether we contract with an organization that already has expertise, infrastructure, workforce to be able to provide them. For these particular services, contracting has allowed us to meet those obligations without having to build and maintain all of that specialized capacity internally. So the $56,202 increase reflected here is the cost of maintaining that existing service delivery network. Any questions on contracts?
I might just speak, I sit on Lakeland and I've reported to this board about that piece, but if you look back at historically, sometimes when we hold the line to not ask for increases, in times it ends up, costing, it looks like it costs more in the end, but really if you look at what a nominal 3% would be, we're around where that would end up. And the additional services that Lakeland provides Clay County that's not covered by what this agreement is, I think really they've seen losses in this area, and I think it makes up for itself based on the other services that they've provided.
Correct.
Psychiatry is a tough nut to crack, particularly with reimbursements, and they have their own state legislative challenges, but really feel like, and you serve on it now too, but that this request is within reason.
Correct, yes. Lakeland has been a great partner in trying to help reduce those increases year over year. As you can see, they only received a small increase from 2024 to 2025, and prior to 2022 stayed relatively stable as well. Again, it seems like a large amount, but I do support that request just because they've been so flat for so many years. Detox funding. Detox and withdrawal management remains a significant expenditure area for social services. For 2027, the projected need is $1,932,652, or an increase of $42,637. I would consider that a conservative placeholder, though. We had some delays in 2026 billing, so it meant the revenue information available to us when we budgeted was incomplete. So I did speak with Ms. Johnson, as well as Troy and Brandon and Jessica. We do believe there's a reasonable possibility that Detox could recognize an additional $200,000 to $250,000 in revenue. I'm really hoping that that's the case. It would reduce this $42,000 increase and have a net decrease to what the request would be for social services. I'm not building that assumption into the budget because we just don't have reliable enough data yet, but I am hopeful that this number improves before our final budget.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Quinn. So on the detox funding and speaking to the revenues, when we moved into that new facility, there was additional programming that was offered there, and there was also additional revenue forecast there. What percentage of that revenue goes to social services budget versus what stays in the detox budget?
I don't have a breakdown of that number. I could get it. My understanding of how it works is they have their expenditures, they bring in all their revenue, and then at the end of that, whatever that they would be short is the money that would be needed from what this board has designated from social services.
I didn't know if the revenue was tied to certain services provided, whether it's between social services versus detox.
It's probably more accurate to characterize that as the activities that detox performs that generates revenue is through the activities from detox, less not activities that our social services staff are doing that bill through detox. So I kind of consider them separate entities, even though the funding mechanism of it appears to be within social services. I don't know if that helps answer your question.
Yeah, I guess, because, we've just recently now, we've kind of, if we're to compare things, we kind of treat detox more in the line of public health than we do in social services, I think, but, so I'm just kind of curious how the revenue breaks down, especially the new revenue that had been forecast when that facility opened.
I believe it's just new revenue for the operations of detox. I can confirm that.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Commissioner Krabanoff, do you have any questions? Okay.
Okay.
I'm good. Thank you.
All right, our commitment and DNMC costs. This is another area where I want to connect the budget back to a discussion this board has had earlier this year during the departmental update for Kerson's Adult and Behavioral Health Unit. We talked about the changes, the way the state is handling the provisional discharges for individuals who have been served through the Minnesota Sex Offender Program in St. Peter. We're seeing more individuals who have been in that program for very long periods of time, sometimes 15 to 20 years, being provisionally discharged back into the community under specific conditions. That has had a direct financial impact on the county. While an individual residing at the MSOP facility in St. Peter, our county cost share is $53 per day. If that individual is provisionally discharged into the community, our cost share increases from anywhere between $90 to $97.50 per day. So at that higher rate, it represents an 84% increase in the daily county cost for that. In addition to the increased provisional discharge activity, the underlying state established cost of care rates continues to change. So even though our statutory obligation of 10% or 25% has not increased, the actual dollar amount that we're responsible for increases. I also want to give you another example of how quickly these costs can accumulate in these areas. And Madam Chair, maybe this speaks a little bit more to what your question was earlier. We currently have an individual from our sex offender population being served under a mental health hold order cost at $530 per day. The county essentially had no discretion in creating that situation. The commitment process and decisions surrounding that individual occurred by the courts, yet the resulting cost responsibility comes back to the county. So in 2025 alone, our county cost share associated with that one individual was $41,870 due to the specific circumstances. Depending on the circumstances and length of stay, those types of placements can cost social services approximately $16,000 per month. Once a commitment is finalized, those costs in that line don't disappear. They generally transition into one of our other three indigent line expenditures on a more permanent basis. Again, those examples are important because one or two individuals, based on court decisions or state placement decisions, really materially change these four expenditure lines for us, and we have very limited ability to control the timing or the cost. I looked really closely at our 25, where we ended, as well as kind of about halfway through the year for 2026, and I am proposing that we bump it $85,000 to the total of $880,000 for 2027 to kind of meet where I believe the demand will be. Moving on to revenue decreases. So this slide identifies several different lines where I do expect to receive less revenue in 2027. Altogether, it's $292,500 less in revenue than what we budgeted in 2026. The first of those is our OBRA Level 2s. This revenue has historically been associated with Level 2 mental health assessments for individuals entering nursing facilities. So based on state changes communicated to us for 2027, we will no longer receive that revenue. We were getting about $3,150. That'll be reduced to zero. The next line is our VADD targeted case management. This represents a small portion of one of our disability case managers' overall caseload that generates the targeted case management revenue for this population. We recently had a retirement in that position, and we've now filled it. There will naturally be some time for the new staff person to become acclimated to the position and build that portion of their caseload, but based on our current activity and again about 6 months worth of 2026 data, I am reducing that revenue by $2,000. I am hopeful that this one will move in the other direction over time, but for the purposes of accuracy in the 2027 budget, dropping at $2,000. The Child Protection Grant highlights an item I brought to this board earlier this year as well, when we learned there was an issue with the state's funding formula. The allocation had been calculated by the state incorrectly, using the total number of child protection reports received by counties rather than the number of reports that we actually screened in. That change had a pretty significant impact on our 2026 allocation. We've now formally received our 2027 allocation, which I've saved and I've noted in case they try to change it again. There was a little bit of improvement from when I had originally anticipated, about $16,000 more than what that reduced amount was for 2026.
It's wild to me that all the rural Minnesota districts decreased and the metro went up.
So you can see we budgeted $364,000 in 2026, but with that change, it was reduced to $272,000. Our 2027 allocation will be $289,133. So better than what is in 2026, but still about $75,000 less than what it had historically been. The next item is our LTSS and SSTS administrative reimbursement. This is one of our larger revenue sources. So LTSS, again, is long-term services and supports. This revenue is essentially reimbursement associated with the administrative work that our folks do with MA long-term services system. The social services time study is what SSTS stands for. I've often referenced that as random moments. This is one mechanism that's used to capture work being done by our staff and when. It's not simply a grant where the state sends us a predetermined amount each year. It's revenue associated with a qualifying activity and the costs that it takes to administer those programs. That distinction is important because the underlying responsibility of those programs doesn't go away just because we don't get the reimbursement. Our staff still have assessments, support planning, case management, coordination, monitoring, all the things that we do. For 2026, we budgeted approximately $1.081 million in this revenue, but based on our current reimbursement trends and what we believe we can reasonably support, budgeting $1 million in revenue, so an $81,000 reduction. Something as simple as an FMLA can impact that revenue stream. If we have a staff that's out on FMLA, they miss a random moment, we might not generate revenue because that person's not here, even though the rest of our staff are still doing that work. The largest individual reduction on this slide is our 4E and Social Security redirects. This combines several revenue lines associated primarily with our auto home placement costs. So Title 4E is our federal funding that reimburses us for our eligible costs associated with children in foster care and other qualifying auto home placements. We've been seeing fewer children in placement who meet those 4E eligibility requirements, which means less federal reimbursement coming back to the county. The other component of this line is Social Security benefits received on behalf of children in foster care. When it's legally allowable, those benefits can be redirected to help offset the cost of providing care for that child. We're seeing just fewer 4E eligible placements and less Social Security revenue that we can legally offset. So based on our 2026 experience, our best projection going forward, I've reduced this revenue from $590,000 to $460,000. That revenue is particularly important because it directly offsets those auto home placement expenditures. So when we lose the 4E or the Social Security revenue, the underlying cost of caring for that child in auto home placement doesn't go away. We just have fewer external dollars to pay for it. And finally, we did see a small reduction in our adult protection grant, approximately $1,200. That grant helps support the work of both of our adult protection workers. Any questions on those revenue lines?
Any questions from anyone?
Moving to another budget area, this line represents the county's required share of those nursing facility costs for individuals with disabilities that are under age 65 that remain in a nursing home longer than 90 days. Under Minnesota law, the county is responsible for 20% of the non-federal share of the MA costs. We don't pay 20% of the whole nursing home bill. They apply the MA funding first, and then 20% of what's left over the county pays for, 80% the state pays for. You can see in the trends, we kind of been going up and up, but we have seen a decrease. Again, this is one that's very difficult to predict because we just don't know when these individuals will go into the nursing homes and how long that they will be there. We are required to complete a MnChoices assessment by day 80 of any nursing facility placement. So when someone wants to return to the community and an appropriate option is available, programs such as our Relocation Service Coordination or Move Home Minnesota program can help coordinate that transition, and we assign a case manager. Ultimately, I'm increasing this $15,000 just due to my best guess on the individuals that we expect to remain in those nursing facilities beyond 90 days. Again, this number can change quickly as people enter, leave, or transition into other settings.
Yes, Commissioner Campbell.
Yeah, thank you. Quinn, so the nursing homes, Clay County doesn't own any nursing homes themselves, but I think there are some counties that do. You know, so I'm curious, are they eligible to go into any nursing homes that are available in Clay County?
It is my understanding. I don't believe it's restricted to just Clay County. It's just any eligible nursing facility. I believe it depends on license type and what they provide.
If they're a resident of Clay County, they'd qualify.
If they're a resident of Clay County, then that's how we get assessed the cost, the 20% cost shift.
Any additional questions?
Okay. Again, moving on to 2027's out-of-home placements. As the board knows, these out-of-home placements continue to be one of the most significant and volatile areas of our budget. The first trend I want to highlight is that since 2019, we've actually seen a fairly steady decline in the number of children that we've actually placed. That's the very bottom of this graph. We had 260 unduplicated children in placement in 2019 compared to only 148 in 2025. So the issue isn't that we're placing more children. In fact, we're placing substantially fewer children than we were several years ago. But at the same time,
I think it's important to give credit where credit is due. I think that there are so many different folks in the community trying to work on the front side about healthy families, healthy communities, all of these components. To see such a decrease, I mean, because 260 is a ton of kiddos, and so, you know, I want to praise the community because I think that shows some really positive work. It's in regard to how much the cost is per individual now that we're going to talk about. But I do think a reduction from 260 to 148 is something we should be proud of.
I do appreciate that recognition. When I signed up here to do this work, that was the goal. The goal was to work ourselves out of jobs, especially when it comes to that particular data point. That graph represents kiddos that have been removed from their families. Mm-hmm. So to see a significant decrease in that, that's what we're all working towards. What's particularly frustrating is that doesn't always seem to be the main takeaway because the expenditures associated with that are just so great that it's quite shocking, honestly. So I really appreciate that recognition. I'm very proud of the work that our child protection staff do in that regard. So as you can see, our expenditures have continued to increase, and the net impact on the levy has also increased as a result. The cost of the placement we are using, the cost of caring for children with increasingly complex needs has continued to go up. So drilling down into some of these individual placement lines, we can see some very specific pressure points. Not going to be a surprise to all of you, but our probation-related consequential or correctional costs are projected to go up $330,000. Stabilization services at the juvenile center are projected to go up $178,000. And our Rule 5 or mental health placements alone are projected to represent about $771,000 of our out-of-home placement expenditures. So those numbers, that context kind of explains how we can have fewer kids in care, but still spend more. Relatively few number of high acuity placements very quickly outweigh savings we achieve by reducing the total number of kids in placement. Again, a specific example, if there's a 15-year-old kiddo in the stabilization program at the juvenile center, it's $595 a day to make sure that kid is safe and it has appropriate care. If that same 15-year-old child was an out-of-home placement, did not require that, but instead was in a foster home or relative placement, the daily rate is $39.16 per day. So really it's the type of placement that is dramatically impacting these costs. Mm-hmm. Mental health is a primary driver. Our juvenile treatment screening team remains consistently full, and we continue to see children who require higher levels of care through residential treatment, stabilization, and other specialized placement settings. The other side of this issue is revenue. We're also seeing less revenue available to offset those costs. Again, like I said, particularly in our 4E reimbursement. In the out-of-home placement committee, we talked a lot about 4E eligibility and how low that is at the federal level. Basically, if any family has a working job, minimum wage, and about 20 to 24 hours per week, they're above the line that makes them eligible for 4E. So we're just seeing fewer and fewer families that are 4E eligible. As this board is also aware, West Central is a part of our continuum of care, and it remains a primary placement option for teenagers when we can't find a relative placement or a county licensed foster home. Because the juvenile center is not QRTP certified, we cannot continue receiving that 4E reimbursement for eligible kids beyond 14 days after those placements. So we can claim for the first 14, but not after that because of the QRTP certification. We don't have it. I do believe that the new non-secure project addresses that. That is built into the plans of the new non-secure. They would be able to be QRTP certified, and we would be able to recapture that revenue that we lost when Family First Preservation Services Act was passed. For 2027, I'm recommending that we increase this net impact to the levy by $500,000, bringing it to $3.33 million. I also want to be 1,000% transparent with you all that based strictly on what we're currently projecting, I could probably make an argument to increase it by $900,000 and still potentially be short if these trends continue, but I do not recommend that full correction in one budget cycle. My plan is to have a more balanced phased approach, to begin bringing these lines closer to our actual expenditures over the next 2 to 3 budget cycles, rather than trying to have that shock in absorbing that gap in 1 year. I also feel the need to let you know that I do fully expect this to remain a budget pressure in 2028 as well. 2026 is a good example of how, 2025 is a good example of how difficult this area is to forecast. We increased the net levy by $80,000 last year, but based on the information and trends available then, that made sense. It was a reasonable decision. With the benefit of hindsight, I would have preferred to jump that $250,000 to $300,000 to more accurately account for this. That fact is also why I continue to emphasize the importance of maintaining a social services fund balance. When we have a year like 2025, where placements finish $1.1 million over budget, our fund balance gives us that ability to absorb the variance without creating an immediate crisis for the levy. I don't believe that our fund balance alone can be the long-term solution to this gap. If we routinely budget our placement costs below our actual expenditures and rely on fund balance to make up the difference, we'll eventually get to a very weakened position. And the state recommends that we have a certain portion of our operating budget in fund balance anyways. So again, my goal is to gradually move the budget closer to our actuals so that our fund balance can remain available for those unexpected ups and downs. There are also those longer-term opportunities that could improve this picture. This board has been a champion for bringing our psychiatric residential treatment facility to our community, which I continue to strongly support. Additional statewide and regional mental health bed capacity would give counties in the state just another treatment option for children who are currently very difficult to place and in need of high acuity mental health treatment. Along with this advocacy, the proposed new non-secure would be a major component of that as well. I didn't create a separate slide for this, but I do want to speak to MAFPA, Minnesota African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act. It is scheduled to take effect January 1 of 2027. We've been in close communication, myself and our child and family services supervisors, about what the implementation of MAPPA will mean for our staff and what changes we need to be prepared for. I do continue to have a great deal of confidence in that team and the work that they're already doing. They already work in a very highly regulated environment and are accustomed to adapting to statutory requirements, rules, and practice expectations. Based on the work that we've done so far in preparing and the training, I'm confident that our staff will be able to implement the Act's requirements successfully. Because of this, I'm not requesting an additional child protection position as part of our 2027 budget. At this point, I believe our existing staff can absorb these required changes. That said, we will be receiving one-time MAFPA allocation from the state of $146,330 in 2027. Payment's supposed to be here on or before January 15th. That funding was designed to assist counties with one-time implementation costs associated with the Act. For budgeting purposes, I did include that as kind of an in and out item. I did $146,000 in and $146,000 out. One important restriction is that these funds cannot be used to supplant existing county funding. We have to expand services. Because this is one-time money, we also do not believe that creating a permanent staff position supported by only 1 year of funding is a responsible use of this allocation. The child and family supervisors and I are really discussing what's going to have more meaningful and lasting impact than one staff for 1 year. One area we're exploring is expanding our preventative and family preservation services through our contracted providers like our in-home therapy, our family skills, and our family group decision-making. Obviously, the goal behind that would be to strengthen supports before out-of-home placement is needed, so trying to go upstream versus downstream. We're also exploring whether some of the funding could be used for technology and workflow improvements like software, AI, case note efficiencies that could really help staff manage the documentation requirements for the Act, while still maintaining our quality and compliance standards that we need in child protection. I am also exploring expanding our visitation and transport capacity through like a variable hour case aid. But my goal is to have all of those options fully evaluated before January so that once we receive that funding, we're in a place to use it immediately and intentionally rather than just spending it because we have one-time funds. Any questions on the auto-home placements or the Act?
Any questions?
Okay. This slide represents the other side of the budget discussion. Up to this point, I've talked primarily about the not fun, doom and gloom expenditures that continue to go up. However, we did everything that we could to increase revenue or reduce our projected expenditures. Collectively, these items provide $310,728 in offsets to the 27 levy request. The first item is our 4D child support incentive revenue. Counties are allocated federal funds based on some of our performance in that area. Based on that performance in Sandy's child support unit, we're going to increase that revenue from $150,000 to $155,000. Our medical assistance recovery dollars are what we're able to recover through the administration of the MA program when there's another appropriate source from which the costs can be recovered. Rather than those costs ultimately remaining entirely within the state, the recovery process allows some of those dollars to come back to the county and offset our administrative costs. This is a revenue source that really fluctuates from year to year because it's completely dependent upon actual cases and if there are those recovery opportunities. I can't simply just generate additional recoveries because we want more revenue. It's dependent upon those legally allowable recoveries. Based on our historical collections and trends, though, I do believe we can reasonably project an increase by about $15,000 in this area. The next item is our MA-funded Rule 79. We have both MA-funded and non-MA funded Rule 79. So for the MA-funded side, we're projecting the county share to decrease from $344,000 to $274,000. We've just seen a little bit less utilization in the county-funded portion of that as opposed to the non-MA funded side. The lead agency capacity building grant, a huge shout out to Holly and her team for this one. It's been a really positive revenue stream for us. Her team has done excellent work under this grant, has achieved several of the required milestones under it, well ahead of what was originally scheduled. But because those milestones have been completed, we've actually already earned the grant revenue that will pay for our anticipated contracted services in 2027. So as a result, the funding that we anticipate getting in 2027 can be fully captured within social services budget, and we don't have the corresponding contract expenditures to go with it. So it's direct benefit to the overall budget, and it's a good example of how Holly's team and her strong performance translates into a financial benefit for the county. SILS, which is Semi-Independent Living Services. This is a partially state-funded mandated service that supports individuals and disabilities in developing and maintaining the skills necessary to live independently in the community. This includes daily living skills, household management, budgeting, transportation, community access, and other skills to maintain your independence. The state provides 85% of this funding, and the county is required a 15% match in order to fully access the allocation. For 2027, the state's SILS allocation decreased and went from $300,000 down to $187,000. Because there are fewer state dollars available for the program, that corresponding 15% county match also decreases. So that's where we're seeing the savings. That decrease from $57,681 down to $33,163. That's not the result of us deciding to or reducing or discontinuing SILS. It just reflects that lower state allocation and consequently the lower county match required to access that. That created about $24,500 in reduced expenditures. Day training and habilitation, or DT&H, is a service for adults with disabilities that traditionally provide structured daytime programming focused on developing life skills, social skills, and community participation. These services have often been provided in like a facility-based setting or kind of group setting. What we're seeing, however, is a broader shift away from this DT&H model. Increasingly, the people that we serve are interested in opportunities that allow them to participate really more fully in their communities, kind of get jobs and work with folks that don't have disabilities. Fewer individuals are just choosing this DT&H service, and that shows up in our expenditures. That's why I'm reducing it from $30,000 down to $10,000. This isn't us arbitrarily cutting access to disability services. It's just adjusting the budget to reflect real-life utilization and the change in our client preferences. And then we also historically maintain a very small amount of flexible funding with several program areas. So it totals $5,000 across children's services, substance use, adult mental health, and disability services. These funds are intentionally set aside for situations where there's a legitimate client need, but no other funding stream available to pay for it. A good example would be helping to pay for medications for a client who is ready to discharge to a step-down facility, but hasn't yet been approved for medical assistance, but still needs that medication before they can exit the facility, all the while the county pays a DNMC cost of $2,100 a day. Another example we've had involved purchasing airline tickets for an international flight for a child who was in out-of-home placement, but was not from the United States. This very recently happened. We were able to coordinate with our international child welfare partners in the UK to safely return that child to their family. Those aren't really what we call regular expenditures, and we don't really have funds set aside for those specific things, but these flex funds really provide a unique solution for things that otherwise might delay discharge, prolong a placement, or create a greater cost downstream. So looking at our utilization of all of those lines together, I do still feel the need to have those, but we did slightly reduce them to the tune of $2,000. One of the more significant offsets is the one-time SNAP admin funding offset that we're receiving from the state, approximately $127,365. Very happy to see that investment from the state, but it is only one time. So the continued administrative loss will occur past 2027, but we do have this one-time funding in 2027. Finally, the Community Living Infrastructure Grant helps support our staff who administer our housing support program. We're projecting that funding to increase modestly from $66,700 to $70,000, providing another small important revenue improvement. I do have to give a shout out to several of our partners, HRA, CAPLP, West Central Minnesota. They took really significant hits in the Community Living Infrastructure Grant revenue. We partner that together regionally, and when our grant was reduced, they made sure that we could maintain our staffing levels because the work that our staff do under this grant is incredibly important for the community. So huge shout out to them for doing that. Altogether, this accounts for $310,728 in either additional revenue or reduced expenditures. I have reviewed really every opportunity, every couch cushion, just shy of a bake sale to try and get these numbers down. But with that, I would yield for any questions that you may have. Sorry, I threw a lot at you, so whatever you got.
Thank you, Quinn. I do want to, two things before we have questions. One, a lot of these items we've talked about at length. We knew there was some challenges on the horizon. You've kept us up to date, working with Steve on what you were seeing, how was that messaging, how are we utilizing that messaging? And then two, your staff does a phenomenal job of dealing with such a moving target when we're talking about dealing with actual humans and lives here, and their ability to rise above these moving targets that are happening all the time to make sure we're meeting the needs in the community. Huge gratitude from us to them on that. Questions for Quinn on any items? Commissioner Campbell?
I don't have any questions, but Quinn, your presentation today really shows your level of leadership. I mean, it's this is mind-boggling when you look through this and the complexity of social services when you're dealing with the federal and the state, and for your short period of time as being the Director of Social Services, you've shown me today that you've you're taking this seriously, and you really understand it well. Certainly more than I do. That doesn't say that we're happy with the numbers, but they are what they are. And, my contention is that, the federal and state government is passing these things down to counties, and the counties only have one source of revenue to fund these. And I've said all along that that source is a very regressive source of tax. And so it just still really upsets me. Now, when we start listen to the national conversation right now, it's affordability. And a lot of that affordability is housing. And, so when you tack on property tax, that's affordability. That's something that's affordability for a homeowner. When you tax on rental properties, guess what happens? Rent goes up. That's an affordability issue. I think at the federal and state level that they're going to have to come up with a different revenue source that is more equitable for everybody. Because what they're doing to the county, this is just not sustainable. I mean, when you start looking at these increases, $2.8 million in 1 year in your department alone, and that 2.8 could be 3.1, because you also indicated some areas that you were able to save. And by the way, part of that is only, like Commissioner Bear said, part of that is only taken into consideration on the SNAP deal 1 quarter. When we could be adding another $1 million to that.
Both the LTSS cost shift and the SNAP performance error rate are partial 2027.
Yeah.
The LTSS represents 50%, so that'd be projected about another 1.1 million if it's annualized for 2028, along with the 1.35 million for the SNAP performance error rate. Those two items alone would get this levy increase already by itself in 2028. That's what has me more concerned about the future versus even the immediate of 2027. I'm just as concerned, if not more concerned, for 2028.
Commissioner.
One comment on that also. And we're providing no more services, no extra services. It's the same services we were providing today that are going to cost us another over $2 million.
So I don't have any answers today. To increase this levy, it's just, to me, it's actually heartbreaking to the people of Clay County, to property owners of Clay County, to have to do this. But I started my conversation with, you can't shoot the messenger here. You're the messenger, and you're doing what you can, and I think I can speak probably for all of us that what you're trying to do is really good under what you have to work with. And I really appreciate how you've grown in your position in such a short time.
Thank you.
You've done a really good job, Quinn.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ebinger?
Yeah, not to be redundant, we are lucky, and it's not just in social services, to have the kind of leadership we have in this county, in our administration, our department directors. Quinn, you have delivered the bad news, and you've given as many options to us as is possible, and there aren't many, because this is not a county development. This starts in Washington, it runs through St. Paul, and there's only one way, I think, as elected officials representing the citizens of Clay County, we can deal with this, and that is to continue what a couple of our commissioners have already done. But anybody that doesn't realize our job is to deal with what's going on in St. Paul, and to bring this county the same voice that the Metro has. We are the 4th fastest growing county in the state.
We won't be.
I know. And it's our job in the next session and the session after that and in all the meetings we have with state and federal officials is to represent what's going on here and the damage it's doing to our ability to provide services to our citizens, mandated and essential services. And they passed it through to where the only way to fund these things is through the most regressive tax we've got in our pocket, and that is property taxes. Part of our job is to make the public aware of what's going on. The other part of our job is to bring the actual facts on the ground to our legislators and to our governor and to our senators and representatives. And you've given us a lot of information here that gives us an argument at St. Paul in this next session. And I know you'll be up there testifying anywhere where it's necessary. I'm grateful for that, but I'm sad that we're in the situation we're in. And I hope our public will be supportive of us. This isn't something that we have control over. This is not a county decision. We're unfortunately in the same position you're in, and we're the bearer of bad news. And we're not just going to sit and complain about it. I think we need to get up and deal with it at state level. And you know, as we've noted, we've had 2 of our commissioners going up to St. Paul and doing excellent work in this last session. And it's something we're just going to have to continue to push. But I appreciate you bringing the bad news and giving us as good an overview as I've seen in a budget process. So thank you.
Additional question?
If I may speak?
Yes, Commissioner Kravinoff.
Yeah. Again, I can't stay quiet. Quinn, excellent job. You know, your depth of everything here is impressive, and, you know, it's good to move forward for us to move forwards with some confidence, a lot of confidence that you and your staff, you know, able to go deep into this stuff with an understanding. Some things we can't change, but you're showing that in areas that we can, you're doing the best you can. So anyway, much appreciated for your work, and you know, we're through. Seems as already spoken, very unjust to our community the way that some of these things are passed down, but that's a fact of what it is, and with you and your staff, we'll just get through it the best we can. So once again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. In regards to messaging, I would ask that we send this presentation packet to all of the state legislative leaders for Clay County, and then also part of the dialogue that we will be having with Congresswoman Fishbach coming up in regards to the SNAP shift administratively. I feel like this is an important packet. For the public, I just want to highlight a couple things. I know we're a little over time here, but part of your revenues that you provided the county provided us in this packet is line after line after line of recoveries and collections and recoveries and collections. And that doesn't happen without immense controls, without immense staff time looking at these programs to make sure funds are going to the folks that need it most, and that if there are any bad actors, we have controls in place to make sure we are moving those concerns forward. And I'm grateful. I know that has taken additional staff capacity, but to make sure that we're continuing to look at that we have the capacity to review all of those and make sure that those that need the programs, that are intended to get the programs, are the ones that are.
Appreciate that. Always feel happy to shout out our fraud investigators. I think when we did Sandy's departmental overview, I think the money that the 2 of them did was on par with Anoka County levels. So it's always happy to see when a smaller county like Clay County can perform such a high area. Thank you for that.
Any additional questions? Great work, Quinn.
Thank you so much.
We have a couple more administrator update, or we have a couple more updates. Next would be Steve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last Tuesday after the board meeting, I met with Mr. Milton and Sheriff Empting in regards to the conversation we had during the sheriff's budget. The Red River Regional Dispatch contracts with our rural cities is coming to an end at the end of this year. We continue to have ongoing discussions there. Participated in the EDA, EDC meeting. That's been well covered. Again, appreciate the team that comes forward, specifically Karen Lauer and Matt Lyseth, and our ongoing conversations with bringing everyone to our quarterly meetings. The 12th, we had Clay County Management. Again, we provided updates on hiring some of the positions here in the county, organizational changes that this board has approved over the last several meetings, the 2027 budget, some of the action items on MCIT, and also had an update from Anna in HR. On the afternoon at 12th, I went over to the West Central Regional Juvenile Center, talked to Josh Swanson about many of the things that are happening over at the facility. That afternoon, I met with Darren and Anna on some hiring and badge access policies that they've been working on. On the 12th, met with representatives that we've shared here with Jason McCoy, talking about Credible Minds presentation that Jason is transitioned to work with. Again, it's an app that all of our citizens and staff can use that deal with mental health. I think that if you look at our social media, there's information there. There also will be coming to the board here for a presentation in the next month. On the 13th, also met with Quinn and Dara Lee. In addition to the comments that you made on certification of CPA, we also have several other certifications on August 1st, including statewide affordable housing aid, which is going to be part of our discussion this afternoon in our joint meeting with the HRA. On the 13th or 14th, we had our first review of the auditor treasurer's applications. Again, we will be looking to have those interviews on September 1st at 1 p.m., starting at 1 p.m. Again, on the 14th, I met with the Partnership for Health, led by Jason McCoy again. We had Commissioner Evergreen, Commissioner Bear, and Commissioner Jepson and Meyer from Becker County, along with representatives from the health community. That has been already addressed. We'll be having a presentation on that as we talked about on the 1st. I participated on the 14th at a regional MACA event. Most of again, were many of the things that we just got focused was what we just spoke about here in social services, some of the cost shifts, shared topics of interest, budgets, and also the upcoming policy conference. On the 17th, met with Quinn in regards to several issues. And just to reiterate, the communication level of all of our department heads, but specifically in this case, the level of conversations Quinn and I talk probably 3-4 times a day, per week. He's always providing updates, not only to this board, but ongoing updates throughout the week and changes. And so we appreciate that type of communications, again, not just with Quinn, but all of our leaders. And then late yesterday, I had a conversation with Steve Nelson, Executive Director of MCIT. As this board recalls, several weeks ago, you asked that the board send a letter with some concerns, and so we had some additional discussion there. Mr. Nelson has offered his willingness to come to Clay County here sometime in the next week or two to discuss that letter in greater detail. And with that, I think that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Brian? Okay, Darren, do you have a report?
Tuesday and Wednesday, I did everything that Steve did, so I won't go over that again. Thursday, the 13th, I had a meeting to discuss an employee issue with the deputy's business agent and the chief deputy, and then a phone call that afternoon with our labor attorney to discuss that same personnel issue. And then on Friday and Monday again, met with Anna and Steve about some various personnel issues that are going on. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Sarah, do you have anything? Any additional comments from the board? If not, we've addressed all the items, business items as advertised for the board. We do have a work session this afternoon with the HRA Commission, and our next scheduled board meeting would be August 25th at 8:30 in this room. We are adjourned.